Picture this. It's March 27th, 1999. A black, angular aircraft slices through the night sky over Belgrade, nearly invisible to radar. Suddenly, two missiles streak upward through the clouds. The pilot sees them coming. One passes so close it shakes the plane. The other detonates, tearing the aircraft apart with 4,500 metal fragments. This was supposed to be impossible. The aircraft was the F-117 Nighthawk, America's first operational stealth fighter. A plane so secret that for 7 years, even its existence was classified. A plane that could appear on radar screens as nothing more than a small bird. A plane that defied every principle of aerodynamics and shouldn't have been able to fly at all. Yet one pilot who first saw photographs of it simply giggled and thought to himself, "This clearly couldn't fly." So how did engineers create an aircraft that broke every rule in the book? Why does it look like it was assembled from cardboard? And why, despite being officially retired in 2008, are these ghost planes still secretly flying today? Stay with me, because the story of the F-117 is absolutely insane. 1. The problem. Let's rewind to the 1960s and 70s. American military planners faced a terrifying reality. Soviet surface-to-air missiles were getting too good. In Vietnam, sophisticated Soviet SAMs had shot down heavy bombers that were supposed to be untouchable. Then came the real shock, the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Israeli fighter jets, some of the best-trained pilots in the world, were being blown out of the sky by Soviet-made missiles. The Israeli Air Force took devastating losses. A 1974 Defense Science Board assessment delivered the brutal truth. If war broke out in Central Europe, Soviet air defenses would likely prevent NATO from conducting effective airstrikes on Eastern Europe. America's entire air superiority strategy was crumbling. The Pentagon needed a solution. Not a better jammer. Not a faster plane. They needed something revolutionary. An aircraft that radar simply couldn't see. Here's the engineering nightmare they faced. Radar works by sending out radio waves that bounce off objects and return to the receiver. The larger the object, the bigger the radar return, what engineers call the radar cross-section, or RCS. A typical fighter jet like the F-15 has an RCS of about 25 square meters. Even the F-16 comes in at 5 square meters, basically lighting up radar screens like a beacon. To be truly stealthy, you'd need an RCS measured not in square meters, but in fractions of a square meter. You'd need to be smaller than a bird on radar. Most people thought it was impossible. You can't just make an aircraft invisible. But in 1975, a Lockheed engineer named Dania Overholzer found something that changed everything. 2. The breakthrough. Overholzer discovered an obscure paper published in 1962 by Pyotr Efimtsev, a Soviet mathematician. Titled Method of Edge Waves in the Physical Theory of Diffraction, had been published in a Moscow radio engineering journal. The Soviets had dismissed it as purely theoretical, interesting math, but useless in practice. They couldn't have been more wrong. Efimtsev's insight was brilliant. The strength of a radar return is undetermined by an object's size, but by its edge configuration. You could calculate how radio waves would reflect off surfaces and edges. This meant you could design shapes that would deflect radar away from its source. Overholzer and engineer Bill Schroeder used this work to create a computer program called Echo-I. They proved something radical. If you built an aircraft from flat, angled surfaces, like facets of a diamond, you could control exactly where radar waves bounced. In 1975, the Skunk Works team, Lockheed's legendary secret aircraft division, created their proof of concept. They built a 10-foot wooden model that looked so bizarre, they nicknamed it the Hopeless Diamond. It was all sharp angles and flat surfaces, like someone had tried to build a plane out of geometric shapes. It looked utterly ridiculous. Then they took it to an outdoor radar test range in the Mojave Desert. The results were stunning. The model's radar signature was so small that when a bird landed on top of it, the radar return actually increased. The radar was picking up the bird, not the model underneath it. When they built a full-scale model and tested it against Northrop's competing design at White Sands, New Mexico, the Lockheed design's RCS was so low, it was smaller than the pole holding it up. They had to build a special pole just for the test. Kelly Johnson, the legendary founder of Skunk Works, had initially proposed curved, blended surfaces for stealth. Resistant Ben Rich proved him wrong with faceted surfaces, Probably the only time in history anyone proved Kelly Johnson wrong about aircraft design. Ben Rich was reportedly delighted. In 1976, DARPA awarded Lockheed a contract to build 2 flying demonstrators under the codename Have Blue. These were scale models, about 1/4 the weight of what would become the F-117, to save time and money. They cobbled together parts from other aircraft engines from the Northrop T-38 fly-by-wire systems from the F-16, landing gear from the A-10, environmental systems from the C-130. It was like building a stealth plane from a military junkyard. The first Have Blue aircraft flew on December 1, 1977, at Groom Lake, Nevada's Area 51. Both demonstrators eventually crashed during testing, but they proved the concept worked. The data was so impressive that on November 1, 1978, the government greenlit full production of an operational stealth aircraft. The F-117 Nighthawk program, codenamed Senior Trend, was born. 3. The engineering madness. It's a plane that shouldn't fly? Let's talk about just how insane this aircraft's design actually is. The F-117 is aerodynamically unstable in all 3 axes: pitch, roll, and yaw. In normal English, this plane wants to fall out of the sky, constantly. Why? Because those flat, angular surfaces that make it invisible to radar are absolutely terrible for aerodynamics. Smooth curves create lift and stability. Sharp angles create chaos. The solution? Computers. Lots of computers. The F-117 has quadruple redundant fly-by-wire flight control systems that make thousands of tiny adjustments every second, constantly fighting to keep the plane in the air. When computer technology from the 1970s limited what shapes engineers could calculate, they were forced into these flat-faceted designs. Later stealth aircraft like the B-2 bomber could use curves, because 1980s supercomputers could handle those vastly more complex calculations. The F-117's structure is primarily aluminum, with titanium used around the engines and exhaust systems. But the magic isn't in the metal, it's in the coating. The entire outer surface is covered in radar-absorbent material, or RAM. The exact composition remains classified, but it's believed to be a matrix of magnetic iron particles held in a polymer binder. This coating weighs almost 1 ton and is held in place by glue. The gaps between panels are filled with a putty-like material engineers literally call butter. Production tooling had to be 10 times more precise than conventional aircraft. Every angle, every surface had to be positioned perfectly or the stealth wouldn't work. One of the trickiest problems was the engine exhaust. Hot engine exhaust creates a massive infrared signature. You might hide from radar, but heat-seeking missiles could still find you. Lockheed's solution was ingenious and incredibly complex. The F-117's exhaust is uncircular SA slit shape designed to minimize the exhaust cross-section and maximize mixing with cool ambient air. The entire rear section is covered with heat-reflecting ceramic tiles, similar to space shuttle tiles. The exhaust system incorporates sliding elements and quartz tiles to accommodate heat expansion without changing shape. Ben Rich later said that designing this exhaust system was the single most difficult item in the entire F-117 project. The 2 large tail fins are angled slightly outward, providing additional obstruction to infrared and radar returns from the engine area. Even the rectangular air intakes are covered with gratings coated in radar-absorbent material. After all this engineering insanity, what did they achieve? The F-117's radar cross-section is estimated between 0.001 and 0.003 square meters. Different sources vary, but all agree. It appears on radar as small as an eagle's eyeball, a hummingbird, or 3 insects. To put that in perspective, the F-117 could get 90% closer to ground-based search radars than an F-4 Phantom before being detected. Against airborne radars, it could get 98% closer. According to one F-117 pilot, the aircraft's bottom was like a mirror refracting radar away. Combined with the RAM coating absorbing what little energy remained, a plane was effectively invisible to conventional radar systems. 5. The shot that shocked the world. Fast forward to March 27, 1999. NATO was conducting Operation Allied Force over Serbia, trying to stop ethnic cleansing in Kosovo. Lieutenant Colonel Dale Zelko calls sign Vega 31 takes off in his F-117, flying his third night mission along the same route near Belgrade. He's already dropped his bombs on a command facility. He's heading home. What Željko doesn't know is that Colonel Zoltan Doni, commanding a Yugoslav SA-3 surface-to-air missile battery, has been studying F-117 flight patterns. Doni's system is nearly 40 years old, designed in 1959, considered obsolete by most militaries. But Doni is clever. He's modified his tactics using his P-18 long-wavelength radar sparingly to avoid detection by NATO's anti-radar missiles. He's developed a strict rule: sweep for targets no more than 40 seconds at a time, then shut down and relocate. His battery has been positioned along predicted F-117 flight paths. Yugoslav spies at NATO air bases have tipped them off about tonight's missions. And crucially, Doni has noticed that in poor weather, when other aircraft are grounded, the F-117s still fly. Suddenly, Dana's modified radar picks up something a faint return, just 8 to 14 kilometers away. The moment when Željko opened his bomb bay doors to release weapons caused the F-117's radar cross-section to briefly bloom. Doni has maybe 40 seconds. He orders his crew to fire. 2 missiles launch from the battery. Željko sees them bright dots climbing through the clouds at 3 times the speed of sound. The first missile passes so close it buffets the aircraft. The second detonates its 154-pound warhead nearby, spraying 4,500 metal fragments. The F-117 tumbles out of control. The G-forces are so intense that Željko can barely reach the ejection handle. He ejects just in time, parachuting into Serbian territory as his invincible aircraft crashes to Earth. Željko hides in an irrigation ditch as Serbian search parties comb within 100 meters of his position. The next evening, an Air Force combat search and rescue team extracts him in an MH-60G Pavehawk helicopter. It was the first and only combat loss of an F-117. Another was reportedly damaged on April 30, 1999, losing a stabilizer but managing to limp back to base. The wreckage was recovered by Yugoslav forces. CNN crews arrived before the US could destroy it. Parts were shipped to Russia and China for study. The Serbs even made propaganda posters. Sorry, we didn't know it was invisible. Was the F-117's stealth technology compromised? The US downplayed concerns, noting the aircraft was based on 1970s technology. But the incident revealed important lessons. Stealth doesn't mean invulnerable. Predictable flight patterns, clever adversaries, and moments of vulnerability like opening bomb bay doors could still be exploited. Remarkably, years later, Željko and Doni met and became friends. They even visited the Belgrade Aviation Museum together, where parts of Željko's aircraft are displayed. I had huge respect for him and the Serbian people, Željko told the BBC. 6. The ghost that never left in 2008. The U.S. Air Force officially retired the F-117. The F-22 Raptor was entering service, and the F-117's operating costs were high. A formal retirement ceremony was held at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in March 2008. But here's where things get weird. The F-117s weren't scrapped. They were flown to Tonopah Test Range and placed in hangars with their wings and tails removed. The official explanation: they're in Type 1000 storage, meaning they could be rapidly returned to flight status if needed. What? And they have been. When since 2008, F-117s have been repeatedly spotted flying in Nevada and elsewhere. Photos and videos show them conducting training missions with F-15s and other modern fighters. In 2021, 2 F-117s participated in dissimilar air combat training with the 144th Fighter Wing in Fresno, California. The Air Force has even certified the F-117 for refueling from the new KC-46 Pegasus tanker. You don't certify retired aircraft for new tankers unless you plan to keep flying them. Why keep flying a retired aircraft? Several reasons make sense. First, aggressor training. Modern fighter pilots need practice against stealth threats, especially as China and Russia develop their own stealth aircraft. The F-117 provides a realistic, low observable target without risking exposure of F-22 or F-35. Capabilities. Second, radar testing. The F-117 is a known quantity. Engineers understand its exact radar signature. This makes it perfect for testing new radar systems and counter-stealth technology without compromising classified programs. Third, coatings and materials research. Engineers can test new radar-absorbent materials on F-117s and measure their effectiveness without building entirely new aircraft. The F-117 has become a flying laboratory, officially retired, but secretly essential. Conclusion: the F-117 Nighthawk was and remains one of the most revolutionary aircraft ever built. It took a Soviet scientist's theoretical paper, American engineering audacity, and 1970s computer technology, and created something that defied every aerodynamic principle. It was a plane that shouldn't fly, but did. A plane that looked like it was assembled from cardboard, but dominated the most heavily defended airspace on Earth. A plane that appeared on radar as nothing more than a small bird. Yes, one was shot down. A combination of clever tactics, predictable flight patterns, and extraordinary timing. But in thousands of combat sorties across Panama, Iraq, Serbia, and Afghanistan, only one was lost to enemy fire. The F-117 paved the way for every stealth aircraft that followed, the B-2 Spirit, the F-22 Raptor. The F-35 Lightning II, it proved that stealth technology wasn't just theoretical idea, it was devastating. And somewhere over the Nevada desert right now, those angular black shapes are still cutting through the sky. Testing technologies we won't hear about for another decade, training pilots to fight adversaries that don't yet exist. The F-117 was never just about the aircraft. It was about proving that the impossible was only impossible until someone figured out how to do it. The Nighthawk showed us that sometimes the craziest engineering solution, flat surfaces, computer-controlled flight, radar-absorbent coating, is exactly the right one. So the next time you hear about some impossible engineering challenge, remember the hopeless diamond that became the aircraft that changed warfare forever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the F-117's insane engineering, hit that like button and subscribe for more aerospace engineering breakdowns. What aircraft should we tackle next? Let me know in the comments, and remember, somewhere out there, an officially retired ghost plane is proving that the best secrets are the ones hiding in plain sight.